Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotar Sata Shri Srimad Abhay Charanaravindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotar Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Srīmad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srīmad Bhāgavatam Canto 3, Chapter 11, Calculation of Time from the Atom. Text 1. Maitreyaha Uvacha Charamaha Sat Visheshanam Anekaha Asamyutaha Sada Parama Anuhu Saha Vigneyaha Nrinam Aikya Brahmaha Yataha Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sadvisheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sadha Paramanu Savigneyo Nrinamaikya Brahmo Yataha Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sadvisheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nrinamaikya Brahmo Yataha Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sadvisheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nrinamaikya Brahmo Yataha. Please repeat. Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sadvisheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Anusavigneyo Namaikya Brahmo Yataha. Maitreya Uvacha Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Nrinamaikya Brahmo Yataha. Maitreya Uvacha Charama Sadvisheshanam Neko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Amaikya Brahmo Yataha. Maitreya Uvacha. Charama Sadvisheshanam. Neko Samyuta Sada. Paramanusa Vigneyo. Pranamaikya Brahmo Yataha. Matajis. Maitreya Uvacha. Charama Sadvisheshanam. Neko Samyuta Sada. Paramanusa Vigneyo. Namaikya Brahmo Yataha. Maitreya Uvacha. Sadvisheshanam. Neko Samyuta Sadha. Paramanusa Vigneyo. Namaikya Brahmo Yataha. Word-to-word translations. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said. Charamaha, ultimate. Sat, effect. Visheshanam, symptoms. Anekaha, innumerable. Asamyutaha, unmixed. Sada, always. Parama anuhu, atoms. Saha, that. Vigneyaha, should be understood. Nrinam, of men. Aikya, oneness. Brahmaha, mistaken. Yataha, from which. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and is not formed into a body, is called the atom. It exists always as an indivisible identity, even after the dissolution of all forms. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but it is misunderstood by the common man. Purport. The atomic description of the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is almost the same as the modern science of atomism, and this is further described in the Paramanuvada of Kannada. In modern science also, the atom is accepted as the ultimate indivisible particle of which the universe is composed. Srīmad Bhāgavatam is the full text of all descriptions of knowledge, including the theory of atomism. The atom is the minute, subtle form of eternal time. Next verse. Sata eva padarthasya swarupavastitasya yat kaivalyam paramamahan avishesho nirantaraha. Atoms are the ultimate state of the manifest universe. When they stay in their own forms without forming different bodies, they are called the unlimited oneness. There are certainly different bodies in physical forms, but the atoms themselves form the complete manifestation. Text 3. Evam kalopyanumitaha saukshme staulye cha sattama samsthana bhuktya bhagavan avyakto vyakta bhug vibhuhu. One can estimate time by measuring the movement of the atomic combination of bodies. Time is the potency of the Almighty Personality of Godhead Hari, who controls all physical movement, although He is not visible in the physical world. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yatkripatamahamam vande Shri Gurun Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Mande Balopi Yattat Anugraha Tare Nana Matagraha Vyaptam Siddhanta Sagaram. Maitre Uvacha Charamasad Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanusya Vigneyo Nrunam Aikya Brahmo Yataha. The material manifestation, which is the material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and not formed into a body, is called the atom. It exists always as an indivisible identity, even after the dissolution of all forms. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but it is misunderstood by the common man. So, this chapter is a very technical chapter that discusses the calculation of time from the atom. And when I was younger, and the first time when I read Srīmad Bhāgavatam, and even before that, actually, I somehow had the good fortune of associating with other children who were also interested in discussing philosophical subject matters. And, we used to ponder over different existential questions after school. We'd go on bike rides to the beach and then gaze at the ocean. And during vacation sometimes, because it was very hot, it's in Chennai where I come from, there's 3 seasons. It's hot, hotter, and hottest. So, it would be nice to wake up early and ride your bike off to the beach where it's very windy. And it's the only time, because India is very crowded and always populated and noisy, it's a time when there's not so many people on the beach. And you have this nice wind, it's not polluted, and it's actually very nice. And we would sit there and gaze at the sunrise, because it's the East Coast, and you would see the sun rising over the ocean. And it was a very surreal experience. Every time you'd see it, you won't get tired of seeing the sunrise. It was kind of mystical. And always it would feel like, wow, this is so amazing. And we would ask, how is this all created? How is this, what is that sun? And what is this world? And why are we here? And how is this ocean so big? How did it come into existence? And so we would have a lot of discussions like this, and of course speculating a lot of things. And I don't know, somehow this, what we learned in school just wasn't that inspiring. It didn't feel like it really gave the answers. And so, being Hindu kids and having heard something from parents and other people, it come up with all kinds of speculations. It just so happened that one of my friends, unfortunately, who right now is more or less a Mayavadi agnostic kind of person, he was the first to read Srīmad Bhāgavatam because his grandfather got a Bhagavad Gita from someone, Prabhupada's Gita, and he found that. This was, I think, in 9th grade or 10th grade. And he started reading that. And then he started reading the Srīmad Bhāgavatam from the vedabase.net. And he used to show us these kind of things. And I remember when I first actually started reading the Bhagavatam myself, I was so excited when I came to this chapter because I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that such kind of information would be found in Shastra. I mean, it was a revelation because coming from a Hindu background, you would speak of it as mythology. That's how you're taught. And you wouldn't expect these kind of things. And it was very fascinating. And we were all kind of excited. Like, how is it possible that a text that's 5,000 years old is speaking of the atom? This is like so far out. I mean, even if it's similar, as Prabhupada describes in the purport, the description of the atom in the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is similar to modern science's description. But it's similar. It's not exactly the same because modern science keeps changing their theories. When I was in school, Niels Bohr atomic model wasn't discounted. It was like, it's valid. It just needs more detail. Now they completely discounted the whole model. They say that the model it's not valid anymore. But still, Niels Bohr is given the credit for speaking of the atom and speaking of a theory of the atom. But just because, and the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is far older than Neil Bohr, but still they don't give credit to Srīmad Bhāgavatam. Why? Why don't they give credit to Srīmad? Even if it's open knowledge, and the Srīmad Bhāgavatam describes. Huh? Even according to their own dating, whatever linguistic dating and this and that, the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is definitely older than Niels Bohr. Neil Bohr, whatever his name is definitely older than Bohr. But still, even if they don't agree that this is 5,000 years old, still it's definitely older. And they talk about, zero was discovered, the digit zero was discovered in India, and like this. So again, I don't understand how that's possible, because how could they have built the Great Pyramids without knowledge of what zero is? And there's an exact angle in which the pyramids are built. And you have to know some trigonometry to build these structures. And you can't do trigonometry if you don't know what zero is. Anyways, all of the theories don't make sense. But they don't give credit to Srīmad Bhāgavatam. Why? Because like you said, it's not atheistic. Just because somehow it speaks about God somewhere in the text, finish, throw it out. But they'll give credit to everything else. They'll go, the paper was discovered in China. The wheel, they don't know where it was discovered. They keep debating about where it was discovered. And again, it doesn't make sense. But they won't give credit to the Srīmad Bhāgavatam. And it's amazing, because if just the Srīmad Bhāgavatam was atheistic, they would have promoted this text like they promote other theories as coming from here and coming from there. That's how atheistic they are. That's how inimical they are towards just even the concept of God. And this shows that they're not actually seekers of truth. They are extremely biased. Why would you not? Why? And it was like amazing. We would think, wow, this is revelation, this, that. But often you would feel that way. But if you try to go to, academians or other kinds of people, you'll immediately see you get no traction. You don't gain any traction with this. Oh, it must be interpolated, this, that. How come you accept that the zero was discovered in India? Why you don't say that was interpolated and all that kind of stuff? Because you're bogus. Anyways, according to modern science, the smallest particles currently known in the universe are quarks and leptons, including electrons. These are considered fundamental particles, meaning they are not made up of smaller components. Quarks combine to form protons and neutrons, which are found in the nucleus of atoms. The smallest particles currently known in the universe are quarks and leptons, like electrons. Leptons are also known as electrons, are one type of leptons, and are believed to have formed very early in the universe's history, within the first microsecond after the Big Bang. Specifically, during the quark epoch, which lasted from 10 to the power of minus 12 to 10 to the power of minus 6 seconds. After the Big Bang, the universe was a hot, dense soup of quarks and anti-quarks and gluons. So many nice words. There's a more detailed breakdown. The quark epoch, this era, roughly 10 to the power of minus 12 to 10 to the power of minus 6 seconds. After the Big Bang is when the universe was hot enough for quarks, anti-quarks, and gluons to exist freely as a quark-gluon plasma. The universe began with the Big Bang, and in the first fraction of the second, the Planck epoch, the universe was extremely hot and dense, and its nature is still largely unknown. Well, at least they admitted that. Now, when I searched about this, what's very interesting is they don't say it was the Big Bang theory. It is the theory. They talk of it as if it's absolute. The universe began with the Big Bang. It's like, the Eiffel Tower exists in Paris. It's an equivalent statement. It's a statement of, they speak of it as if it is fact. Now, this, whatever they call quark, lepton, now you see, we're saying atom, and they say, no, it's not the atom, it's further divisible than an atom. It's all just words. The point is that the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is speaking of the ultimate particle which is indivisible. It's in the translation. The ultimate particle which is indivisible and not formed into a body. And that's what they're talking about. They're saying what existed in the very beginning, it was some quarks and leptons and something, whatever, and then they combined to form atoms. The Srīmad Bhāgavatam specifically actually uses the word paramanuhu. And in Sanskrit, you can also say anuhu is atom. Anu is also atom. Paramanu is also, it's just further. So the point here is that it's the indivisible particle. Now, it's very interesting how this actually practically mirrors what material science, the Bhagavatam and what the material science says, is that the universe, the Mahat Tattva, is actually just made of atoms. The material Paramanu. This material Paramanu is material energy of the Supreme Lord. It is the manifestation of that material energy. Srila Prabhupada speaks of Paramanuvada of Kannada, and and Prabhupada says the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is full text of all descriptions of knowledge, including the theory of atomism. The atom is the minute subtle form of eternal time. So before I get into more about the atom, what does this mean? It means that the atom, and this we see that scientists currently, how do they measure time? Atomic time. They measure the vibration of the atom. And that atom's vibration is calculated as time. And that's exactly what Prabhupada is writing in his purport. The atom is the minute subtle form of eternal time. When this atom does not vibrate, when this atom does not act, when it does not move, when it doesn't react, time stands still, and at that time the creation doesn't exist. It is pradhana in its unmanifested state. This is explained further as we will see. A very interesting subject matter. Quite technical, but interesting. Okay, 5:12:9. The verse says, one may say that varieties arise from the planet Earth itself. However, although the universe may temporarily appear to be the truth, ultimately it has no real existence. The Earth was originally created by a combination of atomic particles, but these particles are impermanent. Actually, the atom is not the cause of the universe, although some philosophers think so. It is not a fact that the varieties found in the material world simply result from atomic juxtaposition or combination. Prabhupada, in his purport, says, those who follow the atomic theory think that protons and electrons of atoms combine in such a way as to bring all material existence into being. Prabhupada is not a PhD scientist. But by reading Srīmad Bhāgavatam, Prabhupada is saying exactly what we just read. However, scientists fail to discover the cause of atomic existence itself. Under these circumstances, we cannot accept that the atom is the cause of the universe. Such theories are advanced by unintelligent people. According to real intelligence, the real cause of the cosmic manifestation is the Supreme Lord, Janmadhyasya Yataha. He is the original cause of all creation, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabho matta sarvam pravartate. Okay, going to Canto 7, Chapter 2, Text 37. Okay. Sri Amarad says, alas, how amazing it is. These persons who are older than me have full experience that hundreds of thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus they should understand that they are also apt to die, yet they are bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after death to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule, which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, why do they uselessly lament? So in the purport, Prabhupada, okay, from this subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation. Right? Okay, we'll go a little bit before. Okay. Just a little before that. Yet, even for argument's sake, we accept the atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From the subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation. Just as from ether, air is generated, from air, fire is generated, from fire, water is generated, and from water, earth becomes manifest. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Okay, then Prabhupada says, when it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. That ultimate stage of unmanifestation, which is pradhana, that is atoms. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. So that Prabhupada makes that point there, which I'm trying to make the point here, that the ultimate unmanifested, sometimes you wonder, what is this pradhana? It's just material. Well, it's actually material atoms in its ultimate indivisible state. And, okay, now, going off to a little bit of a tangent, many times when Prabhupada spoke of atoms, Prabhupada often referred to one particular verse. So, we can go to Canto 6, chapter 4, text 23, and you go to the purport. Prabhupada speaks about the personality of Godhead. He says that the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is explained here with, He is not perceivable by the conditioned souls who are accustomed to material vision and cannot understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead exists in His abode, which is beyond that vision. Even if a materialistic person could count all the atoms in the universe, he would still be unable to understand the personality of Godhead. Panthastu koti shatavattara sampragamyo vayo ratapi manaso munipungavana sopyastiyat prapidisimya vichintya tattve govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So that this point Prabhupada would often bring up, that even if you were to count all the atoms in the universe, still you cannot understand the glories of the Supreme Lord. Why am I speaking about this? Because in Canto 10, chapter 4, 14, text 7, Visnu-Citta Thakur makes an amazing comment. Okay, go straight. Okay, well, let's look at the translation first. In time, learned philosophers or scientists may be able to count all the atoms of the earth, the particles of snow, or even the shining molecules radiating from the sun, the stars and other luminaries. But among these learned men, who could possibly count the unlimited transcendental qualities possessed by you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who have descended onto the surface of the earth for the benefit of all living entities? So in the purport, there's a paragraph, according to Srila Visnu-Citta Thakur, further below. Yeah. The great personalities like Lord Shankarshan actually have counted the number of atoms on the earth. So there are personalities who actually counted. And Shankarshan has counted all the atoms in the earth. And even the molecules in the entire universe. Yet, even such a personality as Shankarshan, who has been continuously chanting the glories of the Lord since time immemorial, has not even approached a final count of those glories. That is very interesting that Visnu-Citta Thakur said that Shankarshan has already counted all the atoms in the universe and all the molecules. Okay, going to Kannada, now we will go to one of the most loved sections of the Srīmad Bhāgavatam, which when you get to, it feels like it never ends. Prayers of the Personified Vedas, Canto 10, chapter 87. Text 25. Okay. The text 25. Supposed authorities who declare that matter is the origin of existence and that the permanent qualities of the soul can be destroyed, that the self is compounded of separate aspects of spirit and matter, or that material transactions constitute reality, all such authorities base their teachings on mistaken ideas that hide the truth. The dualistic conception that the living entity is produced from the three modes of material nature is simply a product of ignorance. Such a conception has no real basis in you, for you are always transcendental to all illusion and always enjoy perfect and total awareness. Now in the purport, this actually gets described, if everything in the verse just flew above your head. So, in the purport, in traditional Indian philosophy, the followers of Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Sankhya, Yoga, and Mimamsa philosophies all have their own erroneous ideas, which the personified Vedas point out in this prayer. The Vaisheshikas say that the visible universe is created from an original stock of atoms, Janim Asataha. As Kannada Rishis, Vaisheshika Sutras state, Nityam Parimandalam, that which is of the smallest size, the atom, is eternal. So, anyways, let me read a little more. Kannada and his followers also postulate eternality for other non-atomic entities, including the souls who become embodied, and even a supreme soul. But in Vaisheshika's cosmology, the souls and the supersoul play only token roles in the atomic production of the universe. Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyas criticizes this position in his Vedanta Sutras. Ubhayatapi na karmatas tad abhavaha. According to this sutra, one cannot claim that at the time of creation, atoms first combined together because they are impelled by some karmic impulse, adhering in the atoms in themselves. Since atoms by themselves in their primeval state, before combining into complex objects, have no ethical responsibility that might lead them to acquire pious and sinful reactions. Nor can the initial combination of atoms be explained as a result of the residual karma of the living entities who lie dormant prior to creation, since these reactions are each jiva's own and cannot be transferred from them even to other jivas, what to speak of inert atoms. So this is a very, very, I feel a little difficult, but it's actually quite amazing. So, you have inert atoms, and Vaisheshika, and Kannada, who is also a Vaisheshika, he says that the atoms combine by themselves, and there may be a soul and super soul, but they just play token roles. The atoms are what is the main thing, because Vaisheshika's ultimate philosophy is that you just perform karma. And why karma? You just do karma. Karma mimamsas. Why do you just do karma? They're pious, but because their point is that the karma influence is actually stored in the atoms. This is what they say. That karmic influence is stored in the atoms, and the karma impels the atoms to combine. It's kind of a weird theory, But where did this karma come from? And the karma is generated by the jiva. And Vedavyasa says, so you say karma is generated by the jiva, that the jiva has to perform karma. So how did this karma get transferred to the atoms? The jiva cannot transfer his karma to another jiva. How can he transfer it to the atoms? Therefore, the atoms are not combining because of karma. They think, Vaisheshika says that the atoms combine because of karmic influence. But the point is that actually, the atoms combine because of what? Why do the atoms combine? Time factor. And what is this time? It's Krishna's energy. That the point that our acharyas make is that this pradhana atom has no ability to react with itself. It's just atoms. It is indivisible. And it's amazing that modern scientists have actually come to this point, right? Because in Abrahamic religions, you don't have any conception of anything like this. They've come to this point where they've understood that there was some kind of plasma that just existed of these indivisible things. But the problem is, they don't know how that plasma came about, and they don't know what causes this plasma to react. Therefore, what do they say? They say it was very concentrated, because they think that if it was very concentrated, it must react. But it's vibrating. So their concept is that if something is vibrating, because right now, the atoms vibrate. They vibrate, they react. The material energy It has some, it looks like this material energy is running, it's functioning. It looks like it's, in one sense, it seems like it's alive. It has some things going on with it. And therefore, they say, the atom, it's always vibrating. And then if you break that atom, you release atomic energy, and this is the whole point about, nuclear energy, nuclear bombs, and things like this. But they can't explain why this atom is vibrating. They can't explain that. And therefore, what they say is, this is vibrating. So if anything is vibrating and you try to condense it together, it must be hot. It must become hot. And it becomes hot, and then it explodes. So this is the problem. They cannot think that there was a time when the atom wasn't vibrating, because it didn't combine. It didn't combine by itself. It cannot combine by itself. And because they think that the atom is eternal, they cannot find the source of the atom's vibration. They just say the atom, or these quarks, or whatever they call them, leptons or quarks and all this, they're active. They cannot explain why they're active. Even though we can guess that matter by itself is mostly inert, even though it might have these quarks. And they explain this. They also say that, different stages, different kinds of material energy. It depends on how much, there's vibration in the atom. And the more hard something is, the less the atom is vibrating. Whereas with other things like electricity and things like that, there's more activity. But they can't. The main problem that they face is they can't explain the source of this, nor can they explain why and how this thing is constantly vibrating. And Prabhupada explains this in his, maybe I'll take over the screen. Oops. So Prabhupada, in a conversation, this is another, actually let me read a little bit about, so this is dialectic spiritualism. Shama Sundar, I hope he understood this right, but anyways, it's a theory. Liebens say that time and space are mere appearances and the ultimate reality is different. Prabhupada, ultimate reality is Krishna, Sarva Karana Karanam. Is it visible? Let's see if I can increase this further. Okay. Liebens say that the ultimate entity is monads. The word monad means unity or oneness. He says that the stuff out of which even atoms are made are all monads, the ultimate particle. That ultimate particle is not final. Within that particle, there is Krishna, Prabhupada says. Andantarastha paramanuchayantarastham. Liebens say that those monads are individual, conscious, active, and alive. They range in quality from the lowest type, matter, to the highest type, such as souls, to the highest, which is God. This is another speculation. You just try to see how many kinds of speculation there are. Anyways, he says atoms are composed of these monads, and these monads have consciousness, and in this way the universe is built, and this is how life comes from matter. This is what this Liebens say or whatever. Okay, then later he asks, Shama Sundar asks Prabhupada the question, not this. Okay, so even within material atoms, there is spiritual life, a spiritual force. Prabhupada, yes. Force means spiritual force. Shama Sundar, he says that all bodies are ultimate quantums of force and that the essential nature of all bodies is force. Prabhupada, yes, that force is the spiritual soul. Within the spirit soul, without the spirit soul, the body has no force. It is a dead body. Shama Sundar, but even within the dead body there are forces. There is a force of decomposition. It's a good argument Shama Sundar is making. Prabhupada, Krishna is within the atom. And the body is a combination of so many atoms. Therefore, the force for creating other living entities is also there, even in the process of decomposition. When the individual soul's force is stopped within a particular body, we call that body a dead body. Still, Krishna's force is there because the body is a combination of atoms. So, within the atom, there is that force that the scientists perceive. This is Krishna's force. This is Krishna's energy. And when this vibration of the atom is time, and it exhibits the will of the Supreme Lord, because the atoms combine, material energy combines according to the will of the Supreme Lord, and according to the same will of the Supreme Lord, that same material energy disintegrates at the time of creation, and the dissolution happens, where everything reaches this state. And what is the difference between what is the difference between Pradhana and Mahatattva? Time. That the atoms, which are otherwise just inert, they are not vibrating. They don't have any action within them. They turn into Mahatattva, and Mahatattva becomes active. This is kind of where scientists came to with their plasma theory. But the problem is, because they don't want to accept the action of the Supreme Lord, they have to speculate that it has to turn into some hot, concentrated thing that then exploded. It didn't explode. It transformed by the will of the Supreme Lord. And then when the Supreme Lord injects the conditioned souls into this universe, the conditioned souls take that further. They take that further, and then more combinations happen. And more things are generated. So the body, as such, is generated by atoms. It's composed of atoms. And that happens by the will of the Supreme Lord. But then when the individual living entity comes into it, he takes some kind of control of this body and then acts. When the living entity leaves, there is some level of inertness. And then that inertness goes further and further and further and further down until it comes down to the very atom where one can perceive that time energy, which even material scientists are perceiving that time energy, but they can't perceive the Supreme Lord. This is how he covers himself with this curtain of Maya. They can't perceive him. They came so close. They've come so close, and they still, even after all of this, they will not recognize the Srīmad Bhāgavatam as the supreme authority. That the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is speaking this even before all these fellows, after spending billions of dollars and so many lifetimes, because all of these scientists, they had to continue off of each other's work and speculate so much and build all these like big things like the CERN thing that's there in Switzerland. What is that thing? The CERN particle, what is that? Blaster? Particle, accelerator. And they collide. What is that? Hadron collider. Hadron collider. And then they bang all these atoms against each other. You can still not see the Supreme Lord. You will still come nowhere close. This is what? Because they think banging each other and they think it explodes and that's it. They think it must have exploded. Because otherwise they can't. And why do they say that it must have exploded? Because they understand that even though there is vibration within this atom, if it's spread out in the universe, it's actually mostly inert. It's mostly inert. It won't do anything. If it's spread out all over the universe, it couldn't have acted and it couldn't have created anything. But it can by the will of the Supreme Lord. And because they're not able to perceive that, they have to come to this point where everything originates. Yeah, and things seem to be expanding or whatever. Anyways, they have so many theories. Even among scientists, everyone doesn't agree with that. And but if you look this all up, they literally speak as if it's fact. But they won't. You can't present, the Srīmad Bhāgavatam says like this. They will never present this in school. They're such rascals. And this is the great text we have. This is not a coincidence. Why are we reading all these things? Because this is not, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. If this is what is saying in the Srīmad Bhāgavatam, then the other things that the Srīmad Bhāgavatam says is true. And devotional service is true. Krishna is real. Bhakti is real. And we are conditioned souls here in this material world, and we are meant to go back home, back to Godhead, and our happiness lies in developing love for Krishna. Because that's what the Srīmad Bhāgavatam says. This is why. Because look at this. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And the level of because the clarity that you get in Srīmad Bhāgavatam, you don't get. I mean, when I used to read these things in school, it was somewhat interesting, but then somewhat it doesn't get interesting when it gets into quantum physics and this and that, and it's just it's like, and they can't explain. Why is it that the particle looks like a wave and the wave looks like a particle? What's a wave? What's a particle? Where's the atom in all of this? It's a big problem. And then the observer seems to influence whether it's a particle or a wave. They can't make sense of this. They just cannot make sense of this. But in one sense, you can see that even the Vedic philosophers, they have little better theories overall, because at least the Vedic philosophers, whether it is Vaisheshika, Nyaya, all these people, with the exception of Charvaka, who's not even included within the 6 philosophies, he's just considered an absolute non-factor, and they at least allude a purpose which is constructive. All of the philosophers will speak of a constructive purpose that which they think generates greater good for the world. They all, if you talk, whoever is the Karma Mimamsas, or the Ashtanga Yogis, or what are the other ones? Huh? The Nyayas, all of them, they all allude, you should do this. This is the purpose of life, and this is how you're meant to lead life, and this is how everybody can become happy. Even the Karma Mimamsas, you should perform pious activities. Or the Ashtanga Yogis, you should perform yoga. Rid yourself of all miseries. But these rascal scientists, they don't present anything constructive. What do they produce? They produce the nuclear bomb. That's all this is the problem of atheistic science. Even though in one sense they've come close to this, their philosophy is still inferior even to that of Vaisheshika, because it's atheistic. It's not based on Vedas. And therefore, they're not pious. They're impious. Because of being impious, they perfectly fit the description that Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Loka. That they act destructive acts that cause Kshayaya Jagato Hita. How does the verse begin? Prabhavanti Ugra Karmanam Kshayaya Jagato Hitaha. Anyways, I can't remember. Anyways, I don't think that's the verse. Okay, anyways, the point is they result in the destruction of the world. And this is what they're literally doing. And this also Bhagavad Gita said. They still won't accept. Still won't accept Bhagavad Gita, still won't accept Srīmad Bhāgavatam. So we have to be very forceful in our preaching. We have to be convinced that what we are giving is actually the greatest knowledge. The Srīmad Bhāgavatam, it presents topics of social relevance, scientific relevance to our personal lives. It presents topics of spiritual knowledge, gives knowledge about God, gives knowledge about the soul, gives knowledge about creation. You have these 10 topics that are discussed. But apart from that, politics is discussed, morality is discussed, social structure is discussed. So many things are found within Srīmad Bhāgavatam. There's a thing that devotees in India used to sell the Bhāgavatam. They say it speaks of astrology, astronomy, economics is presented. All these things are presented in Srīmad Bhāgavatam because Srīmad Bhāgavatam is Sarvam Edihasanam Saram Hidahritam. I can't remember this now. Anyways, this Srīmad Bhāgavatam is the essence of all Vedas. It's in the glorification section. So the Srīmad Bhāgavatam is the essence of all Vedas, and the Vedas present all of this. Veda mean knowledge. You get that from Srīmad Bhāgavatam. So it's very exciting in this kind of description. It's one of those chapters that I remember from the very first time I read the Srīmad Bhāgavatam. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can't imagine that I'm reading this in Sanskrit. So, okay, Hare Krishna. I'll end here. Are there any questions or comments? Please feel free to ask.
So in regards to this particle accelerator or whatever it's called, what are they trying to do? This having atoms bang each other, hoping it's going to be a big bang or something? Or what's the...
You can answer this.
Yeah.
He seems enthusiastic. And you might go ahead. Because I'm not so much. It's in his hometown.
So, I mean, they say that the universe is 70% dark matter, which is what expands the universe. And
Yeah.
When they collide the atoms, it creates some tiny,
That's where they found the quark.
small amount of dark matter. They say.
Small amount of dark matter.
Yeah, which is what they say most of the universe.
And they're trying to understand and research into this dark matter and try to find what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways.
It's billions of dollars to make one microgram of it. It's
yeah.
One of the main reasons for it is that fusion, when they collide, they unstabilize the atom and then they collide it, and then
What's the point? What are they
it releases energy, so you can use that energy to in a sustainable way. So right now it's fission, which is
So anyways,
nuclear
that is also there.
That's the main- one of the main
The fusion is what goes on in the sun,
yeah.
and fission is what they do for nuclear reactors and things like that. And fission is bad because it generates all kinds of radioactive waste. But fusion won't generate that, and actually generates more energy than fission. But they're not able to do it because it requires this high temperature plasma, and they're trying to research into all these kind of things.
It just creates a lot of energy without having to create so much waste.
Ultimately, why are they doing all these things? Because they want to produce electricity and go on with their sense gratification. That's all. Ultimately, that's it. Because without electricity, their sense gratification is finished. Without electricity, this modern civilization cannot exist. Therefore, generating electricity is extremely important to them, and they know all their methods of renewable, non-renewable. All this is all nonsense because none of them is going to produce enough energy for the world to sustain, especially all their sense gratification. If they have to continue on with their casinos in Las Vegas, they need a lot of power. So that's ultimately where it's all at. They need to be able to generate their electricity, but then these demons keep threatening each other, and their infrastructure is so fragile. They talk about these things. If there's solar burst storm from the sun, then all the solar flare, and then all the electric grids they'll all get fried out. And then there's old videos about how that can lead to apocalypse because your phones won't work, nothing will work, everything will die, and then everybody will starve and die. Right. They say that. Everybody will be dead and people will be fighting, and then people will eat each other and all these kind of stupid stuff. And, anyways.
Yeah, like you're saying, the idea is that by doing that, they create, in a smaller space, they can create the max amount of energy, and just like you're saying, they can pretty much feed the whole world with electricity.
They want to tap into it so that then they can increase their sense gratification. That's it. It's as simple as that. Okay. Anything else? Yes, Rishi Kumar.
I had a question, but I just wanted to mention on that the 70% dark matter point. If you ask any professor or scientist about it, they say it's like a cute or like funny thing to them. They'll say that dark matter means we don't know, but they say that 70% of the universe is dark matter. So it's crazy. 70% of their theories.
Yeah,
are
and then
we
even in
don't
the
know.
30%, they don't know what the clue they're talking about, or whatever they think they know about it. They don't know about that either.
Yeah, it's almost
Anyways,
frustrating.
it's
I was wondering with you were explaining how the pradhan is atoms. So I was wondering, because we hear how when the universe is like wrapping up, the different elements, they all kind of
merge
retract.
into each other. Yes.
Yeah, so then the atom, I'm kind of, maybe it's a dumb question, I don't know, but I'm wondering, like, what is it? Does it have any qualities? Because it couldn't be like...
It's
It couldn't-
material nature in its indivisible form. That's literally what the Bhagavatam says.
It's just material nature. So
It's the ultimate particle of matter.
The God particle.
The God particle.
Does it have qualities?
Huh?
Does
No.
it have...
It has everything.
He's saying it has everything.
Everything contained, but it doesn't manifest anything.
So it does contain everything.
Does it have
But
shape?
it doesn't manifest anything. It doesn't manifest any qualities. Pradhana is just pradhana. It is matter, and the personification of that is Durga Devi.
Does it have any shape?
Huh?
Does it have any shape? I'm sorry if it's a dumb question.
From what we read in the Srīmad Bhāgavatam, it doesn't seem like it manifests any shape in its pradhana state. It just exists, and well, it's that cloud that Mahavishnu sits inside, and the water inside that cloud is actually spiritual water. It's not matter. But then Mahavishnu lies on that water, and he glances at this matter, and he agitates it.
So could
And that vibration of the atoms, then it becomes Mahatattva, because it's now agitated by the time factor, which is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, the universe kicks into existence.
in the purport, Prabhupada is saying it's the subtle form of time. So could someone see an atom? Like,
So it's a subtle form of time. No, you cannot see it. The Bhagavatam also says you cannot see it, and the scientists also say you cannot see it.
So why did they give us diagrams and make, things?
It's
involved?
theories.
So that's not how it actually looks.
Yeah, that's also there. What they call as what we call as the atom is just complete, because what they call as quarks, they say the quarks combine to form, quarks and leptons combine to form protons and neutrons. But the electron is said to be an indivisible thing, that it just exists. Quark exists, whatever they call leptons and quarks, they exist. And it doesn't have any structure. And this Niels Bohr thing is discounted.
That's not true.
No, it looks like a little mini universe.
My whole education has been wasted.
Huh?
Learn that until you get to your final.
You learn that so that you can unlearn it. So that, because if you learned it off the cuff, you'll think they're all idiots. So they'll make you learn something that sounds reasonable just to tell you, actually, you're now advanced, you can ignore all of that.
yeah, I remember drawing it. But
It's more a physics thing, not chemistry.
can I ask one more thing about this? But then there's that verse about the hex atom. That's a couple atoms
It's right
combined
there,
that
yeah.
you can see.
And you can see that.
So then I'm confused because they're saying
What is it?
You can see it when there's a few of them.
Yeah, because it combines. It combines, and then you can see it in sunlight. That's what our Bhagavatam says.
Okay, so when it's just one, you can't see it. It's okay, but then if there's enough of them combined together, then there's some shape and form, and you can see. Okay, thank you.
And Krishna is sitting inside of it. Andantarastha paramanuchayantarastham. Parama anu, that's what we read today. Krishna is sitting inside that paramanu. Avadut.
I just have a comment and a question, but you're speaking about like the 6 different philosophies, and of course I've always wondered about this name by Sheshika. And even your Guru Maharaj had stopped me last year when he was here, and he says, what does this name mean by Sheshika? And I was hearing recently it's actually a name of Lord Balaram. He's a knower of the Vaishesha philosophy, so it's interesting like Prabhupada and his disciples, they're like discussing all these different philosophies, and it's important for devotees to know different topics. But my question is, earlier in the class, the class was very technical, so there's a lot of different points.
Yeah, it was technical. The whole chapter is technical.
There was I think it was maybe in the 10th canto, there was a statement that says that a jiva cannot transfer their karma into another
Yes.
jiva.
Yeah.
Was that a atheistic standpoint, or?
No, Veda Vyas says that.
This is true. Okay. So how is it that the spiritual master takes the karma of the jiva at the time of, how is that?
So actually it goes to Krishna, right? Spiritual master takes it and then he transfers it up. But actually it's transferred simply by a Krishna conscious process, and it's done by Krishna's bhakti shakti. It's done by Krishna's spiritual. This is Krishna's divine yogamaya potency at work. And it is this yogamaya potency that can rid us of karma. That's Krishna's holy name, Krishna himself. And so it's Krishna acting. It's directly Krishna acting. The point is, there is no material way in which this karma can be transferred. Now, when I read that, I have an even better question. I'm going to state it so that, Not so much the remnants, but I was thinking literally of the story of Yayati. And that he transferred his old age to his son. So, but the main thing, what I understand, is that even if a jiva may be able to transfer some little karma here and there, move it around a little bit, he can't completely transfer, because if a jiva completely transfers his karma, he's liberated. Jiva cannot do that. So even some karmic transactions may be happening, but you can't get rid of karma altogether. Right? So the karma in that sense is completely tied to the living entity. And who can rid the jiva completely of karma is Krishna himself. Is only Krishna. And spiritual master, because spiritual master is representative of Krishna, Krishna gives him that power. He's empowered. Spiritual master is empowered. That's what the meaning empowered is. But the jiva by himself, he does not have that power. Only Krishna has that power. That was your question also. Okay. Anything else? Matajis? Okay. All right. Yeah.
The refusal to accept the Srīmad Bhāgavatam and it's just because they stubbornly and optionally do not want to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is that the only reason? Reason why?
Because they don't. It's very evident that is because even if something remotely points to the existence of a creator, this is why Dhruta Prabhu has faced so much. All he's done is to prove the antiquity of humans, but then it runs against their evolution theory, which means that something got created somewhere. And then that freaks them out. They cannot, he's not, he does have a book, Human Devolution, where he speaks about, he says, this is the Vedic theory. Okay, you accept this as, let it be one, but he didn't publish that initially. He was forced to publish it because when he started giving lectures and things, people said, so what do you think happened? How do you think this happened? Then he gives us actually devolution. That we are actually spiritual living entities in the spiritual world. And this conditioned state is a devolution of this consciousness. It's not the original consciousness of the living entity. And so he speaks of that like that. But he didn't publish that initially. Him and Sadaputta Prabhu, this Human Devolution was published after Sadaputta Prabhu. Yeah, he disappeared. But before that, they just published the antiquity of the human race and all of this. And they were so upset. So much opposition. Now they don't care about it because they managed to, make sure that his books did get the traction that it should have got in mainstream. And so now then it's like, some relic, somebody published something, and we've managed to stifle that, choke the choke it out of existence. And so that's what happened. Why? He's just, all he did was to show that humans existed millions and millions of years ago. And it freaked them out. It is nowhere close. Srīmad Bhāgavatam directly says, Janmadhyasya ataha. Are you kidding me? This is how envious they are.
I mean, that envy makes him want to just crush any scientific evidence which is presented towards him. I mean, there's so many people who accept
Look, it
intelligent
ultimately will destroy their civilization of material sense gratification.
So these books are very dangerous.
Yeah, Prabhupada said that. I was looking at this, Prabhupada was making this comment that, actually one of the disciples made the comment that this is more, they recognize that these books and this philosophy is very dangerous, this Krishna conscious movement is dangerous. And Prabhupada made, yes, it is more dangerous than their Big Bang theory.
Yeah, for sure.
It is more dangerous than their atoms and Big Bang theory. And Prabhupada made that. It was funny because this Big Bang is it's the foundation of their existence. So and our Krishna consciousness is so potent. What we have, none of the religions have this. Nothing have, and it's a shame that when we see that other people of other religions have so much faith with hardly any knowledge, hardly anything like base. And we have all of this and we still won't, we still don't have faith in Krishna, we don't have faith in the holy name, we don't have faith in the process. It's embarrassing. So that way we can become humble and learn and see what a great philosophy, what Prabhupada has given us. It's unmatchable. And guess what? It goes from this all the way to love of Godhead, understanding the highest mellows of devotional service that Srimati Radharani experiences to Krishna. It's absolutely like, what is this? And it goes, and it's like, all in 18,000 verses? Forget 18,000 verses. Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Acharyas can break the Chatushloki in so many ways. What's more? One verse. Atma Ramascha Muneyo. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all the future Bhagavatam speakers ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. We got a full chapter to go on.